So welcome to another instalment of our webinar series here at Prosper². As decided by our Prosper² members and our lovely webinar audience, today we are discussing motivation and how you can motivate your team. I think this can apply to all situations regardless of the setting, so I think we can all gain some real value from today's session. I'm delighted to introduce our Business Development Director here at Prosper², Sue J. Sue has over 20 years of training and coaching experience under her belt, guiding and assisting SMEs up to larger corporations and their business owners. Sue is also an established author, having published her book, Who's Riding the Bus, only a few years ago on business leadership and management. I'm going to be manning the chat box for this morning's webinar, so if you have any burning questions, ensure that you have the all panelists and attendees selected so we can answer all of your questions at the end. So should we get started, Sue?
Yeah,
so what do we really mean by the word motivation, and why is it so important?
Okay, well, I have to say there are two key things for me when we talk about people. The first one is communication, of which, Grace, you've heard me talk about that lots. A foundation of everything we do, and communication feeds into motivation. And the second one is motivation. Yeah, what motivates us? How are we motivated? And I think that a lot of people don't take any time to stop and think about their own motivation. And motivation is all about what drives you, what your needs are, what makes you happy, what makes you tick. And how, the more motivated you are, the more you're likely to achieve something with a smile on your face. In everyday life, there are some things that we like doing and some things we don't like doing. That's the way that it goes. But if we are motivated in ourselves, even those things that we don't particularly like doing, we can do more easily. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. I think the other key things for me is, one is everybody is different. Yeah. Different things motivate different people. One of the hardest things is to find out what actually motivates you, because unless you take some time to think about that, then you're not actually aware yourself. And if you're not aware yourself, then you can't make decisions that help that motivation. And what can motivate one person can demotivate another. So when we talk about the role of the line manager, trying to motivate your team in the same way is never going to work. And the other one, I think that's a key one, is that there is only one person that can motivate someone, and that is yourself. And that's about taking ownership and responsibility. And when we talk about the motivational curve, it's our responsibility, if we are feeling a little bit demotivated, to make the first move to go forward. But it is absolutely key, if we want to have a balanced life, we want to get the most enjoyment out of it, is to understand ourselves. And it starts with self-awareness. And what motivated you last year may not motivate you this year. And I think coming through the COVID-19 that we're doing now, I think that people have almost been forced to reassess what's important in their life. And those motivational things that they thought before may be very different now.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's definitely, a lot of things rely on reflection as well. You mentioned there the motivational curve. Can you just kind of tell us more about that? And
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, will you put the screen up for me, Grace? And the motivational curve is all about the ups and downs that we go through. And this isn't ups and downs that we go through daily. This is weekly. This is ups and downs we go through daily. Now, I have got an exaggerated motivational curve here, so I really hope you're not going up and down it as big and as large as that. And a motivational curve on a day-to-day basis is a little sort of zig. So if I can give you an example, is you get up in the morning and you're excited and you've got things to do and you're positive and you're there, and I don't know, across your desk, something comes and you go, oh no, really, I've got to do that. And it's a little dip. And depending on how motivated you are, will depend on how quickly you get out of that dip. So looking at the motivational curve here, and I've put some numbers that I'll explain to you, and this is really for those people that have never really taken the time to think of an analogy of how to do it. So we've got what I call the ones at the top of this curve. These are people that are really motivated. Yeah, they're positive, they're eager, they're moving, they're energetic, they're helpful, and all of those sorts of things. And then right down at the bottom of the curve is you have got those people that are really demotivated, where things are really going wrong. It's negative. It's a bit like being in a mouse's wheel that's really uncomfortable. Now, I would say that if we are at either end of that curve, we know where we are. When you're working with people, you know those people that are highly motivated, and you know those people that are really having a tough time. And both of those can be burnout zones, one way or the other. So I like to split the curve in half, because when you split the curve in half, is you've got the positive, more of that, the behaviors that are positive in the top half of the curve. And then in the bottom half of the curve, as you start to go down the curve, then you start to show more of the negative behaviors because you're getting more demotivated. So you'll see that I've put a 2 in here. Yeah. Now I like to call the two swingers. I'm not certain whether I'm allowed to do that on a webinar, but putting that into terms is you've got sort of the positive 2s that are sitting above the curve, and you've got the start of the negatives 2s sitting down the bottom half of the curve. And in that center there that Grace has got a box for me, this is the danger zone. Yeah, because your 1s know where they are, your 3s know where they are. The key about the motivational curve is to know where you are. And the danger zone is that those that are really highly motivated don't recognize the slow move down the curve until they've got below into that bottom half, which is quite a late stage to be able to re-energize and re-motivate yourself. If you catch yourself when you're a positive 2, most people, the biggest percentage live in that box. That box is a good place to live, because either end you can burn out. But when you're sitting at a 2, you need to be reflecting and saying, okay, are my behaviors changing, and am I beginning to show a few more of the negative behaviors rather than the positives? And what I would say to you is it's other people that recognize that first, because it's only slight changes. So the first thing for me is, the question is for you, and it doesn't matter whether you're a line manager, this is individual for everybody. Where are you now? Are you a 1? Are you a 3? Are you a positive 2? Negative? It doesn't matter where you are. It really matters that you recognize where you are. Because if you recognize where you are, then you know what you've got to do about it. So even if you are really highly motivated, great example, somebody starting a new job, excited, want to go out and do things, you can see it. And what happens is slowly they're coming down that curve. Even at a 1, you should be going, how do I stay here? What little things are beginning to bother me? Let me deal with them now. Because if you're going into the bottom half of the curve, it's much harder to climb the curve. And what I would say is that the more motivated somebody is, it's easier to bounce back when the tough things come in. So I'm going to use COVID again as an example. Most people have had a very tough year. There's been some good stuff, some not so good, etc. And if we can stop and reflect and work out what's going well and do more of that to help us get through, then we are going to stay more up the curve. So that's a motivational curve.
So I think it's difficult for a lot of us upon reflection to kind of spot when someone in your team is motivated or not. What behaviors or attributes are shown in either situation of yourself or within your team?
Okay, Grace, great question. 2 things for me here. Before I just move into teams and you're as a line manager, I'd like to pick up individually, because they're the same behaviors. So the first thing is that we ought to be looking for our change of behaviours. We ought to be seeking feedback from people because we don't see it. Am I being, our 3 bottom of the curve, our 1s at the top of the curve? If you're motivated, what you're going to be seeing is positivity, willingness, the want to learn. We want to ask questions, we challenge, we're open, we're honest. Down the other side of the curve, when you start, people are a bit more negative, a bit grumpy, a bit unhelpful, maybe snap a bit more, find fault with things, maybe don't take some responsibility. And what we are looking for ourselves and our line managers is looking and saying, actually, where do I want to be? Well, I want to be a 1. I want to be, that's how I want people to see me. Well, I might be missing that I've got a bit grumpier, I'm a bit snappier. So if we seek feedback ourselves and somebody says, actually, Sue, you're a bit sharp or you're a bit abrupt, and I can go, whoa, maybe I'm dipping and I've not seen it. So as a role, looking for it as a line manager, generally, you know your staff pretty well, or you should, yeah, because what we should be doing is finding out, and I'll come to that in a second, but we can see from afar, and if we have got somebody that is normally quite motivated and we are beginning to see they're a bit quieter or a bit snappier or a bit grumpier or a bit less helpful, that should hit a button here. It should hit a question mark, and we should immediately be picking that up. Don't wait, because the longer you wait, the harder it is to do. And it could be something really simple. I think one of the balances that we have as line managers is, where does the personal and professional go? 30 years ago, it was easy. Where now people's personal lives affect their professional lives, and their professional lives affect their personal lives. So something could be happening. It might not be a work thing, but something could be happening in their personal lives that is moving them down the motivational curve. Mm-hmm. Do we need to help them? Do we need to support them? Yes, we do. Where's the fine line? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if we are seeing behaviors that are unusual, then we ought to be addressing them. If we are seeing consistent behaviors that sit within that 3, that negativity, then we ought to also be picking them up, because they affect other members of the team. Mm-hmm. So just to give you an example, yeah, you're sitting next to somebody, yeah, they are maybe quite demotivated, maybe not at the bottom, and they are complaining or whinging or all the rest of it. Eventually, they will pull you down. I call it mood hoovers. Yeah, it's like a hoover, it just sucks it out of you. And then your motivated people are beginning to show the same behaviors. It can happen the other way too. You've got somebody motivated at the side of you that is helpful and willing and all of those, then hopefully it's going to rub off. But I have to say, it's normally the other one that rubs off first. Mm-hmm. So first for me is take some time and have a look at your behaviors. Go and get some feedback, because it's not the big things. Yeah, it's the little things that grow into big things that push you down that curve.
Mm-hmm. And with that, as a line manager, how does that play within the motivation realm as well?
From a line manager, from a line manager's point of view, yeah, part of our role as line managers is to help, encourage, and keep our staff motivated. The one thing we are not supposed to do is help them go down that curve. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I would say as a line manager, yeah, is we need to find out what motivates our staff. This is not twice a year when you do appraisals. This is a 24/7 everyday thing. Mm-hmm. This is, yeah, assume Grace works next to me. Yeah, Grace, how are you doing at the moment? Have great work. Grace works for me as her line manager. And it's a case of, Grace, what motivates you? There is no way I can find out what motivates a team member unless I ask them, which is where communication comes in. And people go, oh, you can't do that. Yes, you can, because I'm there. I could be giving you something that absolutely demotivates you, and I don't know it. So this is part of your everyday conversations, because The more motivated our staff, then the more productivity, the better customer service, the happier the team. So this shouldn't be another job to do. This should be part of what our role is. And it's about watching behaviors. It's making a little time for your people. And for those of you that are out there that are SMEs and directors and owners, and you are really busy keeping your company alive, you're really busy in that detail. Finding time for your people is hard. I know that. But sometimes it takes 10 minutes. This is, I'm having a meeting with Grace. Actually, Grace, we've got 2 minutes. How are you doing? Yeah, is there anything that's really bothering you? Though I have to say that you ought to be agreeing the roles and responsibilities. My job is to help you stay motivated. My job is not to motivate you, because I can't. I can give you as many carrots and as many sticks as I like, but only you can choose to want to be motivated.
Yeah.
And I try to encourage people that have worked alongside me and within training that I've done is to ensure that each individual knows it's their responsibility. And if there is something there that is not working, I'm not saying there's always an answer. Sometimes it's sorry, that's the way it is. But if you get the elephant out into the room, then you accept that you can't impact or influence it. So it's not just the line manager's role, it's the individuals, but you need to give them the environment to feel safe to come and say, actually, yeah, Grace, I'm having a bit of a tough time at the moment. Can we have a chat? Oh, really? What is it? How can I help you? And we're coming back to communication. If we are not doing that, I will promise you at some stage, yeah, then your staff will be going down that motivational curve. And that bounceability. And again, I come back to an example of recruiting people. I hope to think if our recruitment process is in place, is we recruit people that want to join us, that are motivated, that want to learn, that want to develop. In 2 years' time, I want that person to have those same behaviors. I want them still to be excited. Well, if we've not talked about how we're going to do that, it is not going to happen. So the final one, sorry, on picking up on this, on leaders and line managers is, can you look at yourself as well? Because if you haven't done your reflection, because we're humans too, so we can get demotivated, we can have niggles. Well, if we aren't addressing our own motivational needs, then we can't help motivate others. Because if we're fighting that bottom half of the curve, it will affect your behaviors. It will affect how you speak to people. Yeah, it will affect your stress levels. So you will feed through the team much quicker than if it was a team member. So we have a responsibility as a line manager, but we have a responsibility as a person to check that we are in the right place too. And my final one on that one is that those of you that are line managers and you have a line manager, then you follow the same rules as you want your people to follow with the person that you're reporting to. Communication, the only way within a workplace that you can really, really check somebody's motivation is to ask them and speak to them.
Yeah, and I think it's probably easier said than done in a lot of situations, particularly for kind of maintaining that motivation within a team. How can you motivate someone, like the practicalities of it, and how do you retain that?
Okay, again, Grace, I've got a slide on here. The first thing for me inside the workplace is you need to think outside of the box, because predominantly everybody goes, okay, money. Okay, let's get this one. Yeah, I can spend a long time on this, but I won't. Money is not a motivator. Money is a hygiene factor, and it can also be a demotivator. So if you haven't, you can't live, you can't eat, you can't do anything else, then money, you must get your hygiene factors in place before you can talk motivational. Yeah. So if I can give you an example, somebody that is happy, that is valued, that is respected, that likes their job, enjoys the people, hits their motivational, are not going to move jobs for 50 quid. Yeah. Somebody that is demotivated for whatever reason will leave for a lower salary. So let's take money out of this. Yeah. And for those of you in sales teams and commissions, you have got to dig deeper as a line manager and find out what underlies that whole money thing. So parking that aside, is we have so many tools in the workplace that cost us nothing. Yeah. So, and people hate this. I'm not going to go through all of these, but some really easy ones, yeah, is clear objectives. Yeah, this is how you show success. Now, you ask people what motivates them: challenge, to be successful, to be valued, to be trusted, to be respected, to feel part of the team, work-life balance. Yeah, none of that costs money. That takes time. That takes a little bit of thought about clarity of what success looks like. It's about saying thank you. Now then, training within line management I've done over the years, every single course that I have done on motivation, my question is, so who thinks they get enough praise in the workplace? And normally it's about 10% of any course. Praise is easy. Now, I'm not saying praise for the wrong reasons, don't, because that's another field you don't want to go in. But you know, when somebody does something well, or somebody achieves something or helps somebody, thank you, that was great, you know, and you need to encourage your team members to do it to each other too. It's not just our job as a line manager to motivate that team. They need to motivate each other and to be able to thank each other, and to be able to do. We tend to save that praise for our appraisal in 6 months. That's too late. Yeah, you can do it on a day. People leadership management is a 24/7, 365 days a year. Grace and I have a meeting. Yesterday, Grace had done something. Grace, by the way, thanks ever so much for doing that. That cost me nothing. But that got me a long way with keeping Grace motivated. Yeah, making people feel needed. A big one in the world we are today is allowing people to have a voice. I don't care who we are, what we do, we don't know everything. In fact, some of the time, we know less than those people on the coalface because they're dealing with it every day. Now, their ideas might not be, yeah, what we want to do. And we might turn around and say, that was a great idea, Grace, but actually we can't because of X. But I listened. By the way, I didn't just hear, I stopped, I thought, I listened, and then I dealt with it. So therefore, I'm saying you're valued. I want to hear. Most of the people that work for us are probably more creative than we are. Yeah, they're the ones that see all the small things that we don't do something about. Let them make a difference. The environment that you work in. Yeah, I've got one here that says where they sit. Sorry, little story, Grace. This is quite funny. Please don't do this to me. Yeah, but we had a lady in an office that sat next to a window, and we moved the office around. This is many years ago. Yeah, and we hadn't thought window, light. And she went from top of the motivational curve to the bottom because she went in a corner and actually walked up and said, actually, Sue, I've got to put my notice in. I'm sorry. I don't get it. Yeah. Sue, I cannot work not next to a window. And I went, that's absolutely fine. I'll move you now. But I hadn't thought, because we don't always think. It's not big things that get to people. Yeah. I'm going to do one more example. Yeah. Is kitchens. It's a brilliant example. Yeah, going to the kitchen every day for those people that are a bit OCD, like myself. Yeah, pots in the sink, dishes not washed, and each day that little baby gremlin that sits here grows and grows and pushes you something that bothers. So don't always think it's a big thing. The other thing I would say to you, and I'm going to come back to it, is talk to people. And what was a really big thing, you just talk through and you go, oh God, that's not real. Because we grow things in our own mind and grow these big gremlins. When somebody talks it through and you go, oh, actually, it don't really matter, does it? I've bounced back. But if we don't talk about it, it continues to grow. And think, yeah, challenge people. Not everybody likes challenge. Yeah. The big one for me again is seeing success. So there are lots of things. Performance management is your biggest motivational tool in your toolkit. Used properly, I might note. Yeah, used badly, it's the biggest demotivational. But when we talk about motivational tools, please look outside the box. Do not just think reward, money, tangible. Most of the things that motivate people are not tangible.
Yeah, I think going back to the whole thanking people, I think we live in such a culture, particularly in the UK, where people don't like compliments. And I think we kind of need to get used to accepting compliments and people just being more positive. And I think that's kind of a great thing to think about when it comes to motivation. I'm conscious that we have lots of questions, so we'll go to our, should we like do a little bit of a summary? So what are your top 3 tips that people can take away from this webinar?
Yeah, and these slides will come out. If you pop that, thanks, that's Grace. Grace, that's fine. I think my 3 things, and I've heard them. The first one is communication, without a doubt. Yeah, please talk to people, and you to others, and vice versa. Ask questions. Talk about the word motivation. Yeah, you know, the question is, what motivates you? What doesn't? I'm not promising I can do it, but let's find out. Make it part of your everyday. This is not a job. Yeah, we care about people. And my third one is think individual and plan. You cannot motivate a team of 5 people in the same way. You need to talk to people individually and collectively. And if you can find out what motivates each person, then it's a great way to cross-skill, share, buddy systems. Yeah, so communicate, make it part of every day, and think individuals.
Fabulous. So we have got lots of questions here. So if you've got any more that you think you want to ask Sue, please just send them in and have that panelists and attendees selected. So our first one is from Emily, and she has asked, do you think a lack of desire from employees to return to the office is indicative of their position on the motivational curve, or do you not think there is a correlation?
Okay, what I would say is that there's been a lot of changes with people working from home, and I'm going to come back to everybody is different. Yeah, some could be around the thought process, my role could work differently, but I think you'll find that, and therefore there are going to be big questions around mixes of working from home and working from the office. And yes, that will affect, now people have got an idea that could affect how they go up and down that motivational curve. So without a doubt, that can impact on that. Secondly, is that people could be very apprehensive about, they've been locked down for a year, you know, so going back out the door is a bit like getting over agoraphobia. Yeah. And you'll have people that will go out and not have a thought, and you'll have people that will be really, they need little baby steps to come back in. And you may need to bring some people back in slowly, so that if they go into stress or apprehension like that, they'll be down that curve and it'll be much harder. So I would say to you, if you want to talk motivation and how people feel, this is the time to do it. Also is that you may find that people that went into lockdown that were very highly motivated for lots of different reasons, some professional, some personal, is they are having a problem at the moment because they've missed the going out, they've missed the friends. So without a doubt, the lockdown will have affected people's motivation one way or the other. Yeah, some people could be more motivated because they've so enjoyed working at home. So it has to be an individual by individual case. And I think we have to be, and the big word for me is empathetic, and try to understand the other person's point of view if they are having that apprehension.
Mm-hmm. So Janina's asked, and I think this is I think particularly if they're at the number 3 of the motivational curve, and they might be quite sensitive and that sort of thing. How would you approach someone to kind of encourage them to be more motivated without probably saying that they need to be motivated?
Okay, the first thing I would do is I would do a little, I'd have a conversation about what is motivation. I'd talk about what it is, how it affects people, whose responsibility it is, and I would set the scene, yeah? And then I would go and ask empathetically whereabouts. I have to say the motivational curve and those 3 points, explaining that, and then saying, where do you think you sit there? How does it feel? What do you do? I'm going to come back to without doing communication. It's open questions. You're not saying to somebody, God, you're miserable and grumpy and this, that, and the other. You're talking about what motivation is, how it affects us. And then you go into, so tell me how you feel. Where do you think you fit in there? What do you think's affecting that? How do you think that we could address that? What could you do? What could I do? What could we do together? So you're not pointing your finger at somebody. And what you might need to do is you might need to do the motivational chat first and say, tell you what, go home and have a think about it. Yeah, what's good, what's not so good, and let's get back and have a chat when they've had time to reflect. So some people you'll be able to pick up. It's a little bit, sorry, this might be a wrong one. It's a bit like an alcoholic. Yeah, you can't help an alcoholic unless they're ready to recognize they've got a problem. And it is the same thing with motivation, is that you need them to realize what it is that's happening to them. Yeah. And I'd also turn around and say, particularly at the moment, as a line manager or as a friend, you are not a trained counsellor. You are a line manager with responsibility, understanding motivation to try to help somebody. If you think that somebody's got something very deep rooted, I'm not try and help them. But once you get to so far and you don't think it's working, then you may need to bring specialists. So there's a big difference between somebody being at the bottom of a motivational curve because, there's small things bothering them and this, that, and the other. People that are going down the depression, stress route, etc., then you may need to bring somebody in because you don't want to spend too long, because you may go in the wrong place. We may be pushing the wrong buttons. But certainly, without a doubt, you need to ask them questions and get them talking to you. You don't tell them how you think they're feeling.
Mm-hmm. Kieran here, and I apologise if I pronounce your name wrong. He has asked, if your line manager constantly criticises you over a period of time, should you cut your losses and look for another job? And I think that's kind of a difficult thing to approach, because you might not fit into a company culture, or there might be something different. What would you suggest with that?
I apologise, Kieran, for smiling. If you knew how many leadership courses I have delivered, and virtually everybody that's attended said, can my manager come on the next one? So excuse me for smiling there. There's a couple of things here. I don't think we should ever cut our losses without trying to solve the problem. Now, if we have got line managers that have the leadership skills that they should have, we shouldn't be in this position. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. So it's a bit like managing upwards. And this is about trying to have a conversation with them about doing the opposite. Can we just talk about motivation? Can we just talk about where that goes now? If you're in an environment that can do that and you can try, yeah, you could turn somebody around because they might not be aware of what they're doing. Number one. Number two, they might think that's the only way to manage somebody, and that's a bigger problem. Number three, you could go and seek their line manager's help above. Yeah. But be clear on what it is you're going with, so you don't sound like you're whinging. Yeah. Be clear, get your evidence of, if you're going to go and seek help from somebody else, have your evidence. These are what's happened. This is how it was dealt with. Don't think it's that. You may find that the line manager above actually shows the behaviors that you want them to show, and you feel better going. You have an HR department if you've got them, yeah. You need to try so that you are taking ownership to have tried to do that first. You won't always change them, and what will happen is that eventually you will get so demotivated that you will leave. And this is, can I say, as SME and line managers and the rest of it, that's what happens if we don't pick up motivation. Yeah. And unfortunately, people aren't aware of that. What we want to do is to say to the people that work for us, if you've got a problem, come and talk to me. Whether I like it or I don't like it, if you don't talk to me, I'm not telepathic. Maybe I should see it, whether it's my behaviors or something that's happening, but I might be missing it. So please come and talk to me. So Kieran, you need to try the other way. It isn't easy. It sometimes works, but make certain you've got that evidence for that feedback. If it isn't working, at some stage, you will need to make a choice about your own life, your own well-being, to whether this is the job that you can deal with that. And if that's happening a lot, then it will eventually affect you. And what you don't want to be doing is making that choice when you are demotivated and you're looking for a new job and you're not in the right place either, because you want to be preferably looking for a job for the right reason. I hope that helps.
I think that's a great answer to that, and I hope that answered your question as well, Kieran. So I think we are nearing to 22 now. So if anyone does have any questions for Sue, either email them over to Sue, there's the email there, or you've got my email as well.